Hey, how's it going, guys? I don't usually do these kinds of videos on here. That's usually up to Justin. He wants to show his face, does whatever. I don't care. That's not usually me. But I saw Batman vs. Superman last night, and given that it has mixed reviews, I went in there pretty skeptical. And I had to write a list because the movie was. Holy shit. They crammed so much. I want to start off right on the bat. I'm going to go through this entire list that I wrote down here. There will be spoilers. There will be a lot of spoilers. So I'm going to give you a chance to go away from the video right now, which is, something that you probably should have done beforehand, but whatever. I never saw Man of Steel. I never did. I know the synopsis of the story, like, okay, Superman comes from he comes from Krypton, things happen, father dies, he kills a man, blah, blah, blah. Metropolis is fucked, like, everything is just destroyed. So I went in there with the fact, like, okay, Metropolis basically got fucked over because Superman's, doesn't give a shit about architecture and all that shit, and just killed everything. But when they introduced Ben Affleck as Batman, like the first time when they showed off Batman, or him in the bat suit, I was kind of going with everybody else on the internet, like, he looks really sad. Doesn't really look like he wants to fit the part, and I'm thinking, is this going to be another Daredevil, where he just kind of feels like, I'm sad, I don't want to do this thing. And while it may look like that from the trailers, it works. I mean, he never watched Man of Steel, but I did watch the Dark Knight trilogy. I watched it all, and surprisingly, with this movie, they don't start off Batman like, okay, here's his origin story, here's how he became Batman. You kind of just accept, like, okay, Batman exists, he became Batman somehow, and if you think about it with, he became Batman through the Dark Knight trilogy and all that shit happened, like, it makes sense, it kind of works. Except with the, whole dark Christian Bale, rip your fucking lights down kind of guy. Ben Affleck does really good, honestly, he does play the character a little bit better. He kind of plays it off as, the Bruce Wayne that's kind of like, he's not like I really want to act it out Christian Bale where it's like, I'm gonna, oh, I own this entire thing. Hey, everyone come over here. And, the over-the-top Batman, like, where is she, and all that shit. He does it well where it's like, he knows things. He's kind of, secretive. Like, he plays the part where he's like, yes, I totally understand, but he's kind of like, everything he's saying is kind of a lie. He's kind of lying to you, but he also has his own agenda. He goes off and does his own thing, and it plays well. He plays well like this whole, like a James Bond kind of guy. He plays himself off like, hey, I totally would like to, and then, one thing he's like, do you bleed? And he's like branding people. That's another thing. When he's Batman, like, you're used to seeing Batman as like, I don't kill people, I don't use guns. He kills people and he uses guns, but he doesn't kill people with the guns, which is weird. I mean, I think he killed somebody with a gun. He did, but it was in a dream. It was kind of weird. It was really weird. But like, yeah, he branded people. And speaking of branded, at the end of the movie, or no. Let me start off with Lex Luthor. Oh, Jesse Eisenberg. Okay. I think he would have done well as a Joker, to be honest. And he had this Joker feel. He really did feel like he was playing the Joker. He had, like, the long hair, which is kind of weird for Lex Luthor, which I feel like this is kind of his origin story, like how Lex Luthor became this dark kind of, I'm superpower, or I hate Superman, all that shit. Because he just seems he plays himself off as, like, this, I'm kind of creepy, I'm Jesse Eisenberg, Jolly Ranchers, and shit like that. Like, I don't know. He didn't ruin the movie for me. I just saw him as a different Joker. Like, okay, this isn't Lex Luthor. But it is Lex Luthor, and it was kind of weird because I really wanted to see it. And then at the end of the movie, he shaved his head because he was going to prison, which was like, okay, so there's the bald Lex Luthor, and now he's going to become it. Which I really thought they could have just done Bryan Cranston or something like that. Like, we've seen him in the whole fucking Breaking Bad. Like, we know what he looks like bald, so he would definitely play the part pretty well. But, I don't know if he was really introduced well. Like, okay, he's, and he was also kind of just like, he was breaking the fourth wall a little bit. Like, even in the trailers, and you see it in the movies a lot, where he's like, Clark Kent of Metropolis and Bruce Wayne of Gotham. Oh, it's like, oh wow, you got a steady, you don't want to pick a fight with that person, blah blah blah, and all that stupid shit. Oh boy, he just wasn't really introduced well. But Wonder Woman was. Wonder Woman was really, or I don't know her actual name, but it's Diana Prince, I think that's what her name is. But she was introduced pretty well. I think she was introduced at the party that he was invited to, or that they were all invited to, and she was just kind of like, what's he doing, and all that shit. Then he finds out who she really is by stealing Lex's dossiers on these, metahumans, which I think is actually pretty interesting on how they're doing the whole metahuman stuff. But in this dossier, they have pretty much the symbols for everybody, because Lex is like, okay, I'm going to create the symbols for everybody. You got Wonder Woman, you have Cyborg, Flash, and Aquaman. And what I really liked was I was not expecting it at all in the movie, but Bruce in the movie, he kind of has these things where he's dreaming and he has nightmares, and I think it happens like 3 times in the movie, which is really weird. But he has these dreams, and they kind of just happen. There was one where he was like he was in this barren, dark, deserty wasteland, and he was looking for kryptonite, and then he was jumped, or he was basically screwed. And it was like Superman forces kind of fighting him, whatever. And then like in the background, you saw like the dark side things. Like there was a dark side symbol in this big ass area, which I always thought, okay, dark side, that's awesome. And then his little golems, whatever the fuck they're called, I don't know, but they flew in. I was like, oh, I totally didn't expect that. I thought it was just like another bat nightmare thing. But it happened. But in one of his dreams, alright, which I don't know if it was a dream or just some weird kind of trip, but the Flash, alright? The Flash comes on through and tells him, Bruce, you gotta find Lois, you gotta find us. And I was like, who is this? And I'm looking and I see like it's got like this little armor thing around. I'm like, I don't know, is that Flash? Is that Flash? And I'm looking at the thing, I'm like, that's Ezra Miller. Oh, that's the that's the Flash thing. But it was really interesting with the whole files, and they have everything on them. Like, they showed how Cyborg became Cyborg, like with the Mother Cube and all that shit. They didn't show how Aquaman was just Aquaman. He was just there. Then they showed, more Flash. He's got the ponytail. Flash has a ponytail, which is weird. But then again, the Flash TV show does a little bit things different from the comics. They do a lot of things different. I don't know. I thought it was really good. It's not a perfect movie though. There were some bits and pieces that just kind of didn't really fit. And it was a really big movie. It was like an hour and 30 minutes. Or 2 hours and 30 minutes. It was really long. There was a lot of shit that they wanted to cram in there, which I really think they didn't have to. One of them being, if they just kind of, I don't know, if they actually just decided to take out the whole, it's not Batman versus Superman. It was hardly Batman versus Superman. It was just kind of like, oh, I'm mad at Batman. Oh, I'm mad at Superman for some reason. Like, it was, Bruce was mad at Superman because he killed somebody in Metropolis. He killed his, entire whatever. Why Superman is angry at Batman? I don't know. I don't think he's mad at him. I don't even think he was mad at him, which was kind of weird. Like, what did he... Oh, yeah, he was saying some bad shit about him. I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of where it came from. It was hardly Batman vs. Superman until the end, where he's like, oh, I kidnapped Martha. And it's like, oh, no, I gotta fight you. And then Superman says the word Martha to Batman, and he goes, this is my mother's name. Then he starts crying. And no, he doesn't start crying, but he just kind of goes, oh, man, he's fighting for his mother. So am I. What a twist. And then it just kind of goes off that way. Which is also a kind of interesting thing. Like, their names are, in the comics, it's true. Like, it is Martha Wayne, it is Martha Kent. So it's kind of interesting. Like, okay, they have the same mother's name, so let's kind of bring that into the plot. Which was really cool. And then they had this entire fight with Doomsday, where Doomsday just destroys the entire fucking city. Like, I know in Superman or Man of Steel, he destroys Metropolis. I don't know to what extent, but in the beginning where they showed it off, where they were kind of playing it again, it seemed like he, you could kind of rebuild from that, I would say. But he just like, he lets out this fucking massive burst of electricity or some shit, and everything just decimates. Like, what the fuck? There's, like, no buildings, no structures, nothing's left in, like, this 5-mile radius. And I'm just like, Jesus fucking Christ. It was terrible, but it, like, I don't know, apparently they played it off like, oh, it was a very abandoned part of the city, so no one died. Alright, you can go with that. But they fucked up Gotham this time, not Metropolis. Poor Gotham. God. But that's also the kind of thing, like, it just kind of wasn't played out. Like, the pacing was... it was kind of terrible. I would have to say the pacing was terrible. Like, everything was just crammed into one. I saw what they were trying to do, and they played it out pretty well. But it wasn't going well. It wasn't doing so well. It was just kind of off. Like, everything just didn't seem like... like, I don't know, one scene was happening, then another scene happened, and then Jesse Eisenberg came in, then he came and he left, like basketball or some shit like that. I don't know. It's just... But after that whole Doomsday fight, like, okay, Superman finds this kryptonite spear that Batman made, and goes to fight Doomsday, gets stabbed by Doomsday, oh, he's dying, and then he stabs Doomsday, and then Superman dies, which I just, like... When you see Superman dead, alright, you just think, he's not dead. So, I don't think you have to play out this whole death scene. And that's what they did. They played out an entire fucking funeral scene for Superman. Like, oh, Superman's dead, like, I'm gonna find the others, just, you know, I'm gonna fight for him. And it's like, oh, come on. And then, like, at the end, where they're showing his little coffin, because, you know, they have to do that dark scene where, you know, Man of Steel becomes Batman sort of thing, and it's kind of like, I'm gonna take... Or, like, Lois Lane, she picks up a piece of dirt, and she does the whole thing, you know, the funeral, where you have to pick up a piece of dirt, and you kind of do it before they bury him. She picks up the piece of dirt, drops it on the coffin. There's a bunch of other scenes that happen. And then, at the end, literally at the end, they show the coffin, and then little pieces of dirt rise. I'm like, okay, he's not dead, so why did you have to play out the whole fucking grave scene? I think that's where the bad review came from, which is like, you didn't have to do that, so why did you do it anyway? Because, you know, they're already planning on making a Man of Steel 2, and it's the Justice League. You can't have the Justice League without Superman. I think you can, but I don't know. Oh, my God. But, like, that whole end scene where it's like Batman has to find the others, like, he has to find the others, which is like, okay, and they're all getting their different movies. Like, we already know Wonder Woman's part of it, and then they have to find the Flash. I don't know if it's Dawn of Justice Part 2 or something like that. But that's the thing, they shouldn't have just called it Batman vs. Superman. They could have just called it Dawn of Justice, or Superman Dawn of Justice, because it was more of a Superman movie than it was a Batman vs. Superman movie, which was weird. They could have just called it Dawn of Justice. I think I've said that before. I don't know. But yeah, it's kind of like they're trying to do this thing where they're trying to compete with Marvel in their movies, which, like, you don't really have to. You're completely different companies. Like, you have different superheroes. They all have their different light. Like, DC has gotten pretty dark. And when you think about it, I think they kind of have to expect it. But it did seem like it was being a Marvel movie. Or it was trying to beat the Marvel movies. You know, and they tried to show that off with, like, okay, let's find these people. Let's create this team. Like, we're going to create the Avengers, but we're not going to give everybody the same movies. Whatever. It was kind of odd. But then, you know, Wonder Woman's coming out. Then Flash. Cyborg's not getting his own movie. I think Aquaman is, which I think... Because there's not much that you can do with Cyborg. It's like, okay, we're going to play it out like a football thing, and then an accident happens, and he's left with a part human, and his father fixed him at Star Labs. I don't know. It was all kind of creepy. It was all kind of odd. And, you know, everything's just going to play out in the future. But that's their way of teasing the whole Justice League thing. And I think going into this movie, it helps watching the new 52 stuff, like The Flash on CW and their animated movie Doom, which I know, you know, Green Lantern's in that movie, and he's not in this movie, which is, you know, because they're doing the whole Green Lantern thing, like, after Justice League, I think, and it's kind of odd. But, you know, it helps. It helps watching it because you kind of understand, okay, it actually helps watching The Flash because you understand, you know, how he was able to do that thing in the one scene where he was, like, okay, he can travel through time and space. He can do whatever the fuck. He can literally bend, like, just run so fast that he can go back in time and do some other shit. It was weird. you know, but it helps watching The Flash so you understand it. And it also helps watching Doom so you have, like, this whole feel like, okay, here's what they're trying to do with these characters now. Like, you know, Superman is kind of not this, like, oh, I'm almighty, I'm going to help everybody. It's like, no, he's just kind of a dick sometimes, and he destroys what he wants. Batman is kind of, or at least Bruce Wayne is just kind of dark, and he's just like, I got everything to do, I know what I'm going to do. And it's just, yeah, it helps. It helps watching those movies, I would say. But I feel like watching, you know, if you watch a lot of DC stuff, I don't think you would have a lot of problems with this movie. Except for Jesse Eisenberg, the pacing, and, oh, damn near anything else. But overall, it was pretty good. It does not deserve like a 30% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, I can see where people are getting the ratings from and why they're calling it a shit movie, because like they did leave you with that stupid scene where it's like, oh, Superman isn't dead, because they played out that coffin scene for like 20 minutes. Like, oh, Superman's dead. No, let's all whatever. So they're all going to unite about the Justice League. I think that's what they were trying to do too, was just kind of make it seem like, oh, they aren't these bad people because he sacrificed himself so we all could live. Except when he comes back, they're like, oh, you saved us, you really are a god. But God isn't dead. And whatever, so that's what they were trying to do. It doesn't deserve a low rating. I would definitely give it, I'm not going to give it like a 9 out of 10, and I probably want to give it an 8, but I'm not going to give it a 7, so I'm going to give it like a 7.5 out of 10. Because, like, there were some issues. Like, there were some issues, and they could have done it better. But overall, you know, Ben Affleck does pretty good as Batman. You know, and they teased off. I think that's just the only good thing that came out of Ben Affleck was how well he played Bruce Wayne. The action scenes were pretty good too. There were a couple fight scenes in that movie that really caught my eye. There was one that was happening in his dream where he was fighting those little Superman operatives and all that shit. And then there was one where he was trying to fight the guys that were coming through. The whole Superman fight was pretty interesting. I mean, like, you know, the only way that Batman could fucking lay a shot on Superman is if he hit him with a powder or like a gas kryptonite, which was like, okay. I mean, that's kind of how you would expect it to happen, but you know, yeah. I mean, it was pretty damn dark. It was really dark, honestly, for, you know, it being Superman and fucking, you know, everything going on. It was just, everything was all over the place. But yeah, I give it a 7.5 out of 10. I would definitely recommend seeing it before talking shit about it. Because, like, you can see somebody on, like, Rotten Tomatoes and they're like, oh, this movie's so shit, like, the pacing is awful, and this character's awful, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, not really, because they don't take up that much of the scene. Like, Jesse Eisenberg, like, he was kind of shitty. He was cringy. He was really cringy, but he doesn't take up the entire movie. At least, from my perspective, he didn't take up that entire movie. I mean, there were times where he did actually act like how I would expect Lex Luthor to act, but then he acted like the Joker, and then it all just kind of went crazy. Because at the end of the movie, he was basically just an insane motherfucker, and, you know, Lex Luthor is an insane motherfucker. He's a dark, powerful entrepreneur and has his money and all that shit. It's just, I don't know. They could have done him better. They could have done him justice, if you wanted me to say that. They could have done these characters justice, but, you know, it's the dawn of justice, so they're gonna do it. Ah, well. But yeah, that's just kind of how I would see this movie going, or that's just how I see this movie going. It's not bad. It's not bad. I definitely recommend seeing it. Yeah, I don't want to stretch this out even further because I talk too much about everything so much. I don't even know what I just said right there. Alright, that's enough for me. Alright. I